Now, welcome back to the video of the second lecture, and I have shared with you the foundation of classification in the first video. Now, in the second, I would like to first of all begin by reviewing what we covered in the first video. In the first lesson, we talked about how living organisms are classified and the importance of classification. And we defined what classification is. We defined the levels of classification, which we called taxonomic groupings or taxon. Then we went on to look at the 5 kingdoms in which living organisms are classified, and concentrated on the concept of a species, giving examples of how living organisms can be fully classified, full classification from the domain to the species in that order. Domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. If you change that order, you will not be marked right. And what is important in that full classification is not only writing the right name, but also the spelling. And I went on to tell you that for ease of communication among scientists all over the world, scientific names are used instead of using the local names or the common names. Then we looked at the importance of classification and ended with Kingdom Monera. Now, in this second lesson, I've wanted, or what I want us to tackle is the second kingdom, Protoctista. And examples are those ones of Protoctists. The first 3, Amoeba, Eugerina, Paramecium, are what we've been talking about as protozoans, where we call them single-celled organisms. They have a lot of features which you can see. They are unicellular, meaning the entire organism has a body of one cell. They are not multicellular like the plants, the fungi, and the animals. No, they have the entire body made up of only one cell. That is why we use the term unicellular. Number 2, they have a true nucleus with a nuclear membrane. That is the reason why we call them eukaryotes. That second feature. They have double membrane organelles. I told you they have all the known cell organelles found in eukaryotes, such as mitochondria, the chloroplasts, the nucleus, the endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi body, the ribosomes, the lysosome. They are there in these single-celled organisms. Number 4, Some members locomote freely using either the pseudopodia, the four legs, such as in amoeba, or they may use cilia, like in paramecium, or flagella in eugerina and trypanosomes. Protoctists have varied forms of nutrition, such as eugerina and chlamydomonas. They are able to synthesize their own food, while amoeba and paramecium cannot synthesize their own food, and they feed by phagocytosis. They feed by phagocytosis, where a food particle, which can even be a germ, the germs, food particle is surrounded and enclosed, or what we call engulfed. It is engulfed into a food vacuum, and that food particle enclosed in a food vacuum is digested intracellularly, intracellular digestion. The products of digestion, the soluble products of digestion, are absorbed into the surrounding cytoplasm of the amoeba or the paramecium. In trypanosomes, like those which cause trypanosomiasis, and nagana, sleeping sickness, those carried by sassaflies, they feed by simple absorption of digested food from their hosts. Another and last characteristic, these organisms mainly live in water or in damp environments. Under that kingdom, the main phylum is Protozoa, that has classes such as Rhizopoda, which includes the amoeba, Chiriophora or Ciliata, that includes paramecium, and Mastogophora, the trypanosomes that locomote using a flagellum. The largest phylum, which is Rhizopoda, the largest phylum, which is Protozoa, phylum Protozoa, is made up of the Rhizopoda class, the Ciliophora or Ciliata class, and Mastogophora class. And these are its characteristics. They are unicellular, found in fresh or marine water or in damp soil, free living, meaning majority are not parasitic, although a few, like the trypanosomes, are parasitic. They carry out locomotion by means of flagella. They carry out locomotion by means of flagella, cilia, or pseudopodia. The eugerina are autotrophic. The eugerina are autotrophic. That means they are able to make their own food. They can convert the simple inorganic materials like carbon dioxide and water into organic compounds which act as their food. They reproduce asexually. All of these reproduce asexually by either binary fission, where a single cell splits into two cells split into four cells into 8, 8 cells into 16, 16 cells into 32, 32 cells into 64, and so on. So that within a few minutes, what has been a single amoeba, like the amoeba which causes amoebic dysentery, you'll find so many amoebae in a few minutes because of binary fission. That amoeba which causes amoebic dysentery is called amoeba histolytica. Others, like the paramecium, will reproduce asexually by multiple fission. Multiple fission meaning one cell can split into very many cells, very many fragments. Each fragment taking with itself cytoplasm and some nuclear material that can enable it to continue life as an independent, free-living organism. So this is what they talk about amoeba. You've already met these in your lower level biology. This is how the amoeba can carry out locomotion by means of pseudopodia. But it can also excrete, eliminating from the body unwanted or end products and metabolic wastes. Metabolic wastes can be eliminated from the body using contractile vacuum. And what I've explained how it fits, these are diagrams and explanation of how an amoeba can engulf a food particle, and that could be a diatom in water, and digests it inside the cell in a food vacuum. And then the soluble products of digestion are absorbed into the surrounding cytoplasm, while the metabolic waste, the unwanted products, undigested products, are egested or removed from the body. Reproduction, I've called it binary fission, which I have ably described, one cell dividing into two, and so on and so forth. The same story with the paramecium, it is there. That is the structure of paramecium. And like other protozoans, you can see it is only a single cell. And this single cell, all the life processes, all the processes of life, feeding is carried out in that one cell. Digestion, okay, that is digestion. Locomotion is carried by that one cell. You can see the cilia on the cell surface, and these are tiny, microscopic motile structures that help to propel that single-celled organism. You can see that same cell can carry out reproduction by multiple fission using the nuclear material, the nucleus which is there. That cell can carry out excretion using those contractile vacuoles that are there. The single cell can carry out all processes of life, all life processes, metabolic activities. So when we are talking about kingdom Protocticeta, we are actually discussing the lower forms of life. The lower forms of life. One cell doing all the activities of the organism. It is a eugerina, that is eugerina, which behaves as an autotroph. It's an autotroph. It can carry out its own autotrophic nutrition using the chloroplast that it has, so it can carry out photosynthesis. Moving on to another class, that is fungi. These are multicellular eukaryotes that include the mushrooms and the molds. The toadstool, which you know, Smarts, Penicillium, Muca, Rhizopus, the common bread mold, are examples of fungi, organisms belonging to fungi. So when you leave your piece of bread somewhere, you leave your bread somewhere, and it takes like 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Because that piece of bread is an organic, it has an organic substratum. It's like you will be culturing, you'll be growing fungi, you'll be growing fungal organisms. Remember, the fungi reproduce by means of spores. They reproduce by means of spores, which we call spore formation or sporulation. So the spores are floating bodies. They are tiny floating bodies in the air. They are there out floating in the air. So for you, when you leave your piece of bread somewhere, these spores, the fungal spores, whenever they land on a suitable environment, suitable ground, they will grow. They will germinate and grow. And then you will find after 2 to 3 weeks, your bread covered by the bread mold. It is that bread mold which we call rhizopus, because it is saprophytic. That means it feeds on dead, decaying organic matter in that bread. So those are the characteristics of fungi. The common bread mold is there, and whenever it germinates, like on the piece of bread, it will produce those structures which you can see. In the substratum, there is hypha and mycelium that is inside the bread. But what we see outside the bread is that fruit, a kind of fruit, like you see the mushroom. But here we see a sprangiophore, and then what we call a sporangium. A sporangium is a spore-bearing sac. A spore-bearing sac. It's called a sporangium. The other one was Rhizopus, the bread mold. But now another fungal organism is this mushroom, which is common to all of us. But what we mainly see is the fruiting body, Talking about sexual reproduction in fungi, you will realize that although fungi can reproduce asexually by means of spores, sexual reproduction also occurs as the male fungal organisms and the female produce gametes that can unite to form a zygote. So the sexual reproduction also occurs in the fungi by the male part fusing with the female part in a kind of I may not want to call it fertilization, but it is a kind of conjugation, where the male and female unite to form a kind of zygote. But here you'll not find that this is a male organism, therefore it produces the male gametes, or this is a female organism, and therefore it produces the female gametes. But what you'll find are these two hyphae of different mating types coming together. And when they fuse, they mix their contents to form a zygote. And under favorable conditions, the zygospore, the zygospore or the zygote germinates to produce new mycelium. And then when a thick wall develops around the zygote, the third stage is the formation of from a zygote to zygospore. And the last stage is germinating to produce mycelia, and also the observable fruit. Just like the fungi, just like the bacteria, these are also decomposers. So the two main decomposers in nature are the bacteria and the fungi. Those are the two main decomposers. And when I say decomposers, I mean that they feed on dead, decaying organic matter, or organic materials of plants and animals, and in the process they bring about decay. They bring about recycling of nutrients. So the nutrients are unlocked, they're broken down and freed and returned, maybe back at soil or back at water. The nutrients are returned back to the ecosystem so that they can be reused by living organisms. The bacteria are mainly decomposers of decaying animals, and the fungi, the decomposers of decaying plants. But what you should remember is that without decomposers in nature, without decomposers in natural ecosystems, there would be a very big problem. That means that all the dead bodies of animals, all the dead bodies of humans, all the dead bodies of plants would still be existing here on Earth since several centuries, millions of years ago. Those dead bodies would still be here on Earth because they can't decay, they can't rot. There is no organism to cause their rotting. So that means that we would be suffering with the dead bodies of your great-grandparents, dead bodies of your ancestors, where you don't have where to put them. Imagine how many ancestors, how many relatives you've lost before you came on Earth, and and during your earthly days. A lot of them, but you would be struggling where to pile them up, because they cannot rot, they cannot decay in the absence of bacteria. Similarly, we would be suffering with very many dead plants, fallen mahogany, fallen mesquite tree, fallen trees everywhere, fallen grasses everywhere, those which cannot decay, would be suffering with where to put them. And the soil would not be fertile because the important nutrients are getting locked up in the bodies of these dead plants and animals. So thanks be to God that he created the bacteria that can bring about the decay of dead animal bodies and the recycling of nutrients. They unlock the nutrients and return them to the natural ecosystems so that they can be reutilized. They can be reused by other living organisms. That is how important decomposers are in natural ecosystems. I've given you other importances of fungi. Read through this and be able to remember them. Be able to remember them. Let us move to another kingdom, kingdom Animalia, which consists of some of these phyla. The sponges belong to phylum Polyphera. The hydra belongs to phylum Sedentareta. The flatworms belong to phylum Platyhelminthes. The roundworms belong to phylum Nematoda. The segmented worms, like the earthworms, belong to phylum Annelida. The snails, the slugs, and other soft-bodied animals in that category belong to phylum Mollusca. The starfish belongs to phylum Echinodermata. The cockroaches, the houseflies, the sassaflies, the termites, the honeybee, and all other insects, the millipedes, and all other diplopods, the centipedes, which are the chiropoda, the crustaceans, the arachnids, like the ticks, the spiders, the mites, all belong to phylum Arthropoda. Humans, carnivores, and the other animals, the mammals, the reptiles, the amphibians, the aves, birds, the fish species, all belong to phylum Chordata. Now it is very interesting that from number 1 up to number 8, all of those very diverse. They are very diverse, but many people don't spend time reading about them, though they are very diverse groups. But since this is an introduction to classification, we just need to know those 9 phyla, the animal kingdom. Characteristics of animals are those. They carry out locomotion. They carry out heterotrophic nutrition because they cannot make their own food. They cannot carry out photosynthesis. They lack chlorophyll and chloroplasts, which are the sites of photosynthesis. So animal cells don't have those organelles like chloroplasts, and they feed on food ready manufactured by plants and other autotrophs. So that form of feeding where you feed on already manufactured food. It's called heterotrophic nutrition because you cannot make your own food. They are multicellular organisms, definite body shape, definite shape, and they their cells don't have cellulose, so they don't have cell walls, but they are also eukaryotes with a true nucleus. Now you'll go through this. The sponges, which is phylum Polyphyra. Does it have many characteristics? They are those ones, and you will read them. The Nidarian. Now, that word is read as Nidaria, although the spelling begins with the capital C, but we read it as Nidaria. The Nidarians, which include the jellyfish, the sea anemones, hydra, corals like those you find in oceans, the jellyfish, all of those Nidarians belong to phylum Serenterata. So the Nidarians can also be called Serenterets. The Serenterets. They are the Nidarians. But I implore you to read about their characteristics as given there. Going to this one is read as Platyhelminthes. Platyhelminthes. Platyhelminthes are the flatworms. The platyhelminthes. So when you hear worms like the liver fluke, worms like the porco tapeworm, worms like the beef tapeworm, porco tapeworm, the liver fluke, the roundworm, the roundworms, the hookworm, the pinworm, chinworm, and the like. Then you know that we are talking about phylum Platyhelminthes, the flatworms. Those are the characteristics of the flatworms. Dorsoventrally flattened body, bilateral body symmetry. Most they are parasitic, have alimentary canal but no mouth. All of those are characteristics of the flatworms. They are hermaphrodites. They have both male and female organs in the same organism. They lack a blood circulatory system. They lack a blood circulatory system. Therefore, gas exchange occurs by simple diffusion all over the body surface. So this means that it is good for us to explore this phylum. The reason why I want you to concentrate on phylum Platyhelminthes, the reason why I want you to concentrate on this phylum is that most of the parasites of humans, which I taught you in class, actually fall in this group. They are Platyhelminthes, they are flatworms. So read about their classes. Like Taberalia is a class, Trematoda is a class, and Cestoda or Cestoda, the tapeworms, cestodes, the cestodes are the tapeworms. Read about those classes. Read about those classes. So read about the characteristics of flatworms and the classes of the flatworms. There are three. There are three classes: trematodes, cestodes, and the planarians. Okay, we are still under the animal kingdom. Under the animal kingdom, we have this important class, which you should also read on that class, that phylum, which is called the roundworms or phylum Nematoda. Phylum Nematoda. Under phylum Nematoda, we have the hookworms, the pinworms, the guinea worms, and others that have got those characteristics. I remember I showed you images of these worms, like Ankylostoma duodenale. Ankylostoma duodenale, the hookworm, is a round worm. It's a nematode. They have segmented bodies, elongated and cylindrical bodies pointed at both ends. Closed circulatory system. Gas exchange occurs by simple diffusion all over the body because they have simple bodies. And therefore, they don't need to develop specialized structures for gas exchange. They have a complete digestive system with both mouth and anus. And although some are parasitic, others are free living. They don't feed on their hosts. They're free living. The segmented worms, what some people call the ringed worms, the segmented worms belong to phylum Annelida. Phylum Annelida. Annelida is double N, not single N. So the ragworms, the earthworms, and the others are annelids. They are annelids. Now, what I should emphasize here is that some of these groupings may be examined in section A of your paper. For example, they may bring you a question and they ask you that organism Y has a closed circulatory system. Number 2, gas exchange occurs all over the body. Number 3, they are hermaphrodite. It is a hermaphrodite. And number 4, the body is divided into septa. And number 5, they have ring-like segments. And then they tell you organism Y is likely to be a round worm, B, an earthworm or an annelid, C, a tapeworm. They give you like 4 choices and they tell you to select one. So your correct choice will depend on the time you've invested in reading about these characteristics. Now, I told you in my beginning that the snails, the slugs, the squids, a squid is an invertebrate with a very quick escape response. When something touches it, it can jump away. It has a quick escape response. So the snails, the slugs, octopus, squids belong to phylum Mollusca. You can Google out and look for the appearance of these, the snails, like the garden snail. You will see it in its shell, and you know it. Those are called mollusks, phylum Mollusca. They are soft-bodied, but their bodies are not segmented. And we find shells. We find them with shells where they always hide to escape from the natural enemies, the predators. So you will find these mollusks using shells that resemble their backgrounds for survival. So another phylum is the sea dwellers. These ones may not be common because we don't have seas or oceans this way. But the sea urchin, the sea lilies, the sea star, the starfish, sea cucumber, all of those are called Echinodermata, phylum Echinodermata, phylum Echinodermata. And those are their characteristics. So you can go to your phone and just put in image of one of these, and you will be able to see them and the characteristics that they have. Another phylum, which is actually the largest in the animal kingdom, is the phylum Arthropoda. Phylum Arthropoda. Remember, I emphasized, and I'm still emphasizing, that for this class, just like I've said, that you need to know the flatworms, you need to know the roundworms, I'm also saying you need to know the characteristics of arthropods and the classes in phylum Arthropoda. Characteristics of arthropods like a segmented body, exoskeleton, which is shed periodically, the jointed limbs, jointed appendages, bilateral symmetry, open circulatory system, a well-developed nervous system, and a complete gut. All of those should be at your fingertips. The knowledge of the 5 classes of phylum Arthropoda, class Crustacea, class Chiropoda, class Diplopoda, class Insecta, and class Arachnida. Please, those 5 classes, remember them always, because you are teachers, and when you break down the science of classification into lower levels, from kingdom to phylum to class to order, you will have simplified work for your students, from order to family, from family to genus, and from genus to species. So the crustaceans, you need to know examples. The crayfish, the woodlice, the lobsters are crustaceans, and those are their characteristics. You'll find they are aquatic, both in marine and in fresh water. They have gills. They have gills for breathing through the membrane. They have 2 body parts, not 3 body parts. You'll find in all crustaceans, the head and thorax are fused to form the cephalothorax. The second body part, the second body division is called the abdomen. So unlike the insects, which have a head, a thorax, abdomen. In the crustaceans, the head is fused with the thorax to form a cephalothorax. And the second division is the abdomen. The crustaceans have a pair of compound eyes, each on a raised stalk. The crustaceans have 2 antennae and small, short paired attenues. The small, short pair of attenues in the antennae. They have 4 pairs of mouth parts: the maxilla, the mandible, labium, and labrum. They have 5 pairs of limbs, which are modified for swimming. Remember, I told you they live in marine and they live in marine and freshwater. Another class under arthropoda, under phylum arthropoda, is class chiropoda, the centipedes, such as that one shown in the diagram. You can see a pair of antenna, 1. You can see a well-defined head at the end of the body, and the rest are similar segments. You can see that it has compound eyes, mouth parts, at the mandibles, only 1 pair of leg on each body segment. They carry out gas exchange using a trachea. They feed on insects and worms. A dorsoventrally flattened body, and they have 1 pair of poisonous claws, meaning these centipedes, which we call cigar, should be avoided by children and by adults. Others just kill them, but just avoid them, because we learn to conserve living organisms, not to kill them. Class Dipropoda is another class in phylum Arthropoda, and these are the millipedes, like the one shown in your image there. So these are the millipedes, which are mainly herbivores, unlike the centipedes that are mainly carnivorous. This one is mainly herbivorous. You will excuse me. Let me answer a call. So still looking at those characteristics. So I was answering a call. Because I'm the program coordinator of the Bachelor of Science degree program, and we are reviewing the program and also expanding it so that it includes 9 subjects, all of the subjects taught in the College of Natural Sciences under the Bachelor of Science. We want to put them also under distance education. So there are some documents they are asking from me where I have to review the curriculum. Actually, they are curricula of different subjects, and I send them back for College of Natural Sciences to present them before the Senate. So you will excuse me for answering a phone call of my college registrar of natural sciences. But going back to our discussion, the millipedes are the class the class Dipropoda. Then the centipedes are the class Chiropoda. They somehow look similar. Like the Baganda have what we call kamwaka. This one is in the diagram is called siga. They call it siga, but they have also what we call kamwaka. Now kamwaka and siga are both placed in class Chiropoda. And they are carnivorous. They will feed on insects and worms, and some of them are actually poisonous. Actually, as I've already said, they have a pair of poisonous claws. But when we come to the millipedes, these are called amagongoro. The magongoro or the millipedes all belong to class Dipropoda. They all belong to class Dipropoda. And you'll find that they are not as poisonous as the centipedes. And even when you touch it with your hand, with your bare hand, you'll not be injured. You'll not be injured or poisoned. So those are their characteristics. Read about them. Know how to distinguish between the differences between class Dipropoda and class Chiropoda. Make for yourself a table of differences between class Chiropoda and class Dipropoda. Or it can even be asked to state the differences between millipedes and centipedes. That is important. And if I were you, I would go out maybe to a forest near Makerere campus, not a forest, but some bush place. And I look out for these organisms. I put a centipede separately and a millipede separately. And then I read these features, these characteristics. There you will understand them very well. But for some of you who have already read about them, and you've also observed them very well, just put down that table of differences between class Chiropoda and class Dipropoda. Before you proceed to other classes, do that comparison. Find out the similarities and the differences. Moving on to class Arachnida. Class Arachnida. Remember I told you that these are the spiders, nabubi, ticks, enkwa, mites, or scorpions. I don't know the local name, but in your own languages, the spiders, ticks, mites, you know them. And these are the arachnids. Arachnids. But what you should remember is that the arachnids have a similarity with the crustaceans. Remember I told you that in crustaceans, the head and thorax are fused together to form one body division that is known as a cephalothorax. The second division being the abdomen. We see a similar body arrangement in arachnids, in spiders, in ticks, and in mites. A similar body arrangement is observed where the head and thorax of arachnids are fused to form a cephalothorax, also known as prosoma. Okay, that is the first body division. The lower body division in arachnids is called opisthosoma. Opisthosoma. So the abdomen of arachnids is opisthothoma. But this is a similarity now with the crustaceans. Remember, the crustaceans are things like the crayfish, the crabs, lobsters, wood lice, the crustaceans. They also have that characteristic number 3, where we said their body is divided into two parts. The head and thorax are fused to form a cephalothorax, and the second division is the abdomen. Don't you see that that is one way you can give similarities between crustaceans and arachnids? So please go through these characteristics, these features which are observable on arachnids, and get a comparison. For example, how could you compare these features of arachnids with those of class Insecta? How can you compare and contrast the features of class Arachnida with those of class Crustacea? That is the kind of pattern that you should look for as you go through this. In other words, you should read with a notebook. Your reading should be active reading as you ask yourself questions that you should answer using these instructional resources, these learning materials. So ask yourself, in which way do crustaceans differ from arachnids? In which ways do crustaceans resemble arachnids? Then you will have what we call active learning and quick processing of the content in your working memory. You'll be able to quickly process the content in your working memory as you actively write down questions and using these materials to answer them. Okay, moving to another class, which you mostly know, class Insecta. Insects here have been described as the most successful animals on Earth. The most successful animals on Earth, which you will find in every habitat on Earth. You will find insects in air, you'll find insects in water, you'll find insects in soil, everywhere you go. Both terrestrial and aquatic habitats, both land and water habitats. Insects are there, and they are the largest group of arthropods. They are not only the most successful group of animals on Earth, but also the largest class among the arthropods. So, you know these distinguishing features, you know the characteristics of these insects. Rather than you outlining these characteristics of insects separately, go back to what I've said. Get a pen and look for another class like class Arachnida and look out for the similarities between the two classes. similarities of class Insecta and class Arachnida. Look out for the differences between class Insecta and class Arachnida, which are very obvious, here. These have 3 body parts. The other ones have 2 body parts, arachnids. Arachnids have 8 legs or 4 pairs of legs. When you come to insects, they have 3 pairs of legs, and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. So please have active learning where you may not only form discussion groups to read as a group, but also read as an individual by posing questions whose answers are obtained from the material here. So that section covers the success of insects on land. Why have insects been successful on land? For example, you are given some reasons that they have evolved special organs such as wings for flight that enables them to occupy diverse environments and diverse habitats across the world. The impervious exoskeleton made up of chitin protects the insects from drying up, or it helps them in water conservation, water retention in the body, in the terrestrial environment. The terrestrial environment is the environment on land. So the problem of land dwellers, land animals, is water. So if you are living, for example, in a desert where water is scarce and the dry conditions are more prevalent, how will you survive? You will survive by having a mechanism of water conservation. You do not easily lose the little water in your body. Otherwise, you will not survive in such an environment. So insects have been successful in colonizing the terrestrial environment, the land environment, by having a waterproof exoskeleton made up of chitin. The material in the exoskeleton of insects is known as chitin. Just like we said that the material in the cell wall of plant cells is called cellulose and hemicellulose. Now we say the material in the exoskeleton of insects is known as chitin. Another reason for the success of insects on Earth, or to occupy a diversity of environments, is the small size, which enables them to fit in a place. Another adaptation of insects is their ability to conserve water by excreting uric acid. Uric acid, these are solid crystals which are excreted in insects, and they are non-toxic. In that point, you'll add there the word non, so that it is read as non-toxic, non-poisonous products, such as uric acid. When an excretory product is non-toxic, such as uric acid, less water is needed for its elimination from the body. Less water is needed for its removal from the body, for which reason the insects can continue surviving in dry environments, in terrestrial environments, by excreting the non-poisonous, the non-toxic uric acid that needs less water for elimination. You will read on other reasons for the survival of insects on Earth. Why insects are the most successful animals on Earth that are found in all habitats, in every environment. Metamorphosis, we may not go into details of metamorphosis. We may not go into details of metamorphosis, but what is important for me here is the orders. The orders. Now, you see that table there, in your notebook, in your exercise book, please note down those common orders, because when they are assessing you, they may give you an order, but they tell you to write examples of insects in that order. For example, they give you order Dictyoptera. It is written for you there, order Dictyoptera, but they tell you to give 2 examples. That means we must know the name of the order and representatives of insects in that order. So under Dictyoptera, we have a cockroach, beetles, and weevils. Under Hymenoptera, order Hymenoptera, we have the bees and the wasps. Under order Isoptera, we have the termites. In order Lepidoptera, we have the moths and butterflies. Under Diptera, we have the houseflies and mosquitoes. Under order Orthoptera, we have the locusts, the grasshoppers, and the praying mantis, which the Baganda call Nkongola Mabere. That Nkongola Mabere, praying mantis. The grasshopper is a Janzi. The locust, that is a Zige. I think they call it a Zige. So those grasshoppers, praying mantis, locusts are in order Orthoptera. Houseflies and mosquitoes, order Diptera. Moths and butterflies, order Lepidoptera. The termites, order Isoptera. The bees and wasps, that is enjuchi nenumba. Enjuchi are the bees, and numba are the wasps. The bees and wasps are in order Hymenoptera. The cockroach, the ebiyenje. The beetles and weevils, order Dictyoptera. Of course, there are other orders like Coleoptera, which are not here, Hemiptera, which are not here. But for those we have chosen, please concentrate on them. And here you are being shown that you can be asked to write a full classification. A question may come when you are required to write a full classification of a citrus butterfly. From domain Eukaryota, kingdom Animalia, phylum Arthropoda, class Insecta, order Lepidoptera, family Papilionidae, and genus Papilio, species Demodocus. And the scientific name of the butterfly will become Papilio demodocus, where both names are underlined separately. That is possible. You can be assessed to see if for the common insects around you, you can write a full taxonomic classification using that hierarchy in that critical order. In that critical order, which I called Dalking's play, Dalking's play, and those others from domain, kingdom, phylum, class, and when they don't write for you that order, you have to write it yourself from domain to species. So the order Lepidoptera, which includes the butterflies, those are the characteristics. Those are the characteristics. Lepis means scale, and ptera means wing. So if we say Lepidoptera, then we mean they have powdery scales on their wings, such as those you see in the moths. You'll find them at night. They are nocturnal, and the butterflies are diurnal. You'll find them active during the day. Diurnal animals are active during the day. Then nocturnal animals are active at night. So a moth is nocturnal, but a butterfly is diurnal, though both belong to the same order Lepidoptera. I have given you one difference. It is there between a butterfly and a moth. One is diurnal, that is the butterfly, and another one is nocturnal. There are other differences which are given in that table. For example, in butterflies, the wings are held upright when it is at rest, while in a moth, the wings are held horizontally. The butterfly has a smaller body, the moth has a larger body. The butterfly has brightly colored body, and the body of the moth is dull. The antennae are clubbed at the tip in the butterflies, while they are pointed and feathered in moth. The butterflies pupates above the ground, while the moth pupate in cocoons or in the soil. Concerning this life cycle, you may not go into the details. My interest is only in the fundamentals and principles of classification. So you can see that the cockroach can also be classified. Periplaneta americana is its scientific name, but it can be classified all the way from the domain, which is Eukaryota or Eukarya, down the taxonomic hierarchy up to species. Kingdom, Animalia, phylum, Arthropoda, class, Insecta, order, Dictyoptera, family, Blattidae, genus, Periplaneta, species, Americana, and the scientific name becomes Periplaneta americana. So that section there on a cockroach classification characteristics. Read them. The rest of the other features, you can read them for your own knowledge. How is the cockroach adapted to its environment? That one is also important. That one is important. Just like I told you that it is important for you to read about how insects have been successful in colonizing different environments, different habitats on Earth. Now, these stated external features that you see there, they help you to observe the animal very well. You can measure it. You can observe its color, its exoskeleton, body divisions. That is important to a taxonomist. So you'll get an animal that looks like this, and each structure of the body, as you can see in that diagram, is talked about below. The head is talked about, and it is that head that bears the mouth parts of the cockroach. It is the same head that bears the compound eyes, and the same head bears the antenna, like you can see them there. It is important for you to learn about those structures found on the head. Going to the second part, which is the thorax, we can see that the thorax is divided into the prothorax, the mesothorax, and the metathorax, each bearing a pair of jointed eggs, each bearing a pair of jointed legs. But you will also see, as you can see in that diagram, that the two pairs of wings also originate from the thorax, the fore wing and the hind wing. They have their origin on the thorax. So the paired wings are attached to the dorsal surface of mesothorax and metathorax. That is the second and third thoracic segment. Now, going back to the legs of these cockroaches, we can also name them depending on where they are located. If the legs are located on the first segment of the thorax, we can call them prothoracic legs. On the second pair, on the second segment of thorax, we can call them mesothorax legs, or on the third segment, we can call them metathoracic legs. That structure shows the hind leg, like that one, located on the metathorax, the last segment on the thorax of the cockroach. That is how it looks like. So it is important at this level that we may use a hand lens. We may use a hand lens and other magnifying instruments, other magnifying glasses, to observe tiny structures like those found on wings, those found on legs, so that we can be able to teach them to our learners. And our learners should also be taught how to observe and how to draw and label with the correct label lines and correct names what they have observed. But the observation skill must start with you, the teacher, under training. There are many science teachers who avoid drawing diagrams. They get the book, give it to a student, and tell him to go to the blackboard to draw as they are seated behind. But as you do that, you are ruining your future as a teacher, because a teacher of science should love observing and drawing, even when you are drawing a diagram from your book. If you draw a biological diagram very well from your book on the blackboard or whiteboard or smartboard, even your learners will emulate your drawing skill, and you'll find yourself nurturing, mentoring learners. You'll be mentoring the future scientists, all the way from primary level up to university. So whenever you meet a diagram like this, observe it, follow it up critically, keenly, and practice drawing it. And if you find this one, observe it very well, see how to begin drawing it, and proceed to draw it on a piece of paper or notebook. Proceed to label it very well without using arrows on the label lines, and writing the correct spellings of the parts labeled. So moving on from the cockroach, we can go here. They distinguish for you the male cockroach and the female cockroach, and you are given the economic importance of cockroaches. Economic importance may be advantages or uses, and even disadvantages. How harmful or useful the cockroach is. The grasshopper is there. At least we've seen some representatives of insects. Some representatives of insects. This is a grasshopper, and it undergoes incomplete metamorphosis. Egg, a nymph, and an adult. You will not find the pupa stage will not be found here. Call me in 30 minutes. Call me in 30 minutes. That is the grasshopper. Going to another insect, that is the housefly. You know a lot about the housefly. Here I'm only showing you what you are supposed to grasp as a teacher of IPS. As a teacher of IPS, you need to understand full classification. You need to understand the characteristics of houseflies, the external features diagrammatically. The external features diagrammatically. And each of these features, the head, the thorax, the head and other parts are described, but I'm interested in also the economic importance of houseflies. Economic importance of houseflies. Read them. You have them there. And how houseflies can be controlled to mitigate the spread of diseases. Diseases like cholera, diseases like dysentery, and others spread by houseflies. Going to the mosquito, also take time to read about the mosquito, because these are tropical insects that are known by entomologists and medical scientists to be a great challenge to the human society. You all know that malaria is one of the leading causes of death among children in the tropical countries, in Africa here. And up to now, scientists are still struggling to find a remedy for malaria. Malaria does not only disturb children, it does not only lead to high infant mortality, but also adult mortality. That is why understanding the biology of the mosquito, such as the Anopheles mosquito, which transmits the malarial parasites, is important in eradicating, in preventing, in controlling the spread of diseases by this vector, by this secondary host, the mosquito. Other types of mosquitoes, like the chulex, are vectors of diseases. Chulex causes dengue fever. AIDS is a vector for yellow fever and elephantiasis. Elephantiasis is, I told you, it is caused by a filarial worm. Elephantiasis is caused by a filarial worm that we called Wuchereria bancrophoti. It causes elephantiasis, but it is spread by this species of mosquito known as Aedes mosquito. So that is its full classification. The head of the mosquito is this one. Of course, here we are providing you with the basics, the basic taxonomy, basic features of these organisms. But when you go to do a master's degree in entomology, which entomology is the science of insects, then you will find more details beyond the basics we are showing you. But the mouth parts which are being shown here for the mosquito indicate to us that it feeds by sucking fluids or liquids from our bodies. Once it finds an entry route into into maybe your capillaries, blood capillaries in the skin. It will secrete certain secretions that will prevent blood from clotting, and the flowing blood will be sucked by the mosquito. So life cycle is given here of a mosquito, but my interest is in economic importance. Economic importance. Because there are many species of Plasmodium. Plasmodium are the malarial parasites. They are the parasites which are spread by the mosquitoes, Anopheles mosquitoes, and which result in diseases. Those 4 species of parasites, malarial parasites, are there: Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium falciparum, Plasmodium ovale, Plasmodium marelii. The mosquito spread, Anopheles mosquitoes spread malaria, whose symptoms are those. And this malaria can be spread by not only preventing the mosquitoes, but also therapy. Therapy is treatment. You can treat malaria, but you can also prevent being bitten by the malaria, like sleeping in mosquito nets, and you can also do other control measures. And that slide shares the appropriate measures we can take to combat malaria from our communities. Destroy the breeding places, burn or bury empty containers, clear bushes around homesteads, use biological control method by introducing fish that will eat the mosquito larvae and pupae, kill the insects chemically by spraying them with insecticides such as Doom, remove stagnant water in old tins, bottles around the homestead. Protect your body from being bitten by mosquitoes throughout the day. You can control the parasite development in your body by taking appropriate drugs, following the correct prescriptions given by the health workers. Apply mosquito repellent cream to the body. All of this will result in control of malaria, which is one of the leading causes of death in the tropics among the children. The honeybee, Apis mellifera, is also a common insect. How do we classify it fully? We classify it from the domain up to the species. It is in order Hymenoptera. What you need to correct here is that when we move from kingdom to phylum, the next taxonomic grouping is class. From class, we go to order. And from order, we go to family. So that this order should be corrected. From family, we go to the genus. And from genus, we go to the species. So the external features and characteristics of the honeybee, Apis mellifera, are also given here. They form these bees in characteristic number 3. They form what you call the caste system. The caste system: the queen, the drone, the workers, and the soldiers. Those are the castes. And the castes have division of labor. The queen produces other bees. The drone fertilizes the queen. The workers carry out the other duties in a hive, including collecting food, cleaning the hive, all of that are the works of the workers. I'm running to go to other economic importance of bees. They are given here, but there is some important section here which talks about why insects have been successful, especially on land. Why insects have been very successful, especially on land. The points are there. High rate of fertility and reproduction, bodies covered with exoskeleton and wax cuticle made up of chitin, wide range of modifications in their body parts, enabling them to feed on different foods. They have wings for flight and legs for walking, enabling their quick dispersal and escape from their predators. And they can easily look for food. The smaller size, that means they eat little food, occupy small space, and can easily escape from their natural enemies. They can fit. They have various shapes where they can fit different modes of life, such as the cockroaches, whose dorsal ventrally flattened body shape enables them to easily pass in narrow pathways known as crevices. Then some insects have a variety of colors to camouflage, to resemble the background, and to avoid being eaten by predators. They are not easily identified. Others have some spots all over the body for false aggressive and warning appearance to the predators, which we call warning coloration, or which we call mimicking or mimicry. Mimicry, such as Mollerian mimicry and Batesian mimicry. So, but the concept is called mimicry, where you resemble and also you resemble another organism. You also show the one with the warning colors or warning coloration that resemble a dangerous insect, a dangerous organism, so that you avoid being identified or being noticed by your predator, which confers survival value. That mimicry confers survival value. The last we are going to read about or to talk about in this class is the phylum Chordata, but I wanted to cover the invertebrates, especially the arthropods, and in particular the insects in their own video. And I implore you to take time and review that video, concentrating on the class Insecta, the orders in insects, the characteristics in insects. Concentrate on the phyla under class, under kingdom, under that kingdom, Animalia, all the phyla. Concentrate on them. But when it comes to the insects, learn also the full classification, the economic importance, and how they can be controlled, especially those which are vectors for tropical diseases. So just review the video and listen to areas where I have put a lot of emphasis. Thank you very much. This is the second video.